r/AskReddit. Serious, what's the most awkward date you've been on, and what made it awkward? Went out with a girl from Tinder to a board game bar. Yes, a bar that has a bunch of board games for rent. I'm new to town. She suggested it. It seemed like. So we meet and rent Scrabble. The first question I ask her is how was her experience at the university she just graduated from. She rolled her eyes and told me she hates when people ask her about it. This foreshadowed the whole date. Every time I tried to ask her a question or start up conversation, she would always reply with an "I'm better than you" attitude or completely disagree with me, not in a cute flirty way. Some examples: I told her I like to travel and consider it a hobby. She replies with "That can't be a hobby and it doesn't take skill to travel." After I rightfully defend my path, she told me she works at a bakery and I said I love red velvet cupcakes. They're the best. She proceeds to roll her eyes and says I'm just like everyone else who doesn't know a thing about cupcakes and baking. I told her I love to play volleyball and she tells me her university wasted space building a sand volleyball court, etc etc. And by the way, this whole time she is super competitive and won't let me talk during her turn at Scrabble because she wanted to beat me. We are 3/4 of the way through the game and I'm getting fed up and suggest stopping the game and tallying up the score. I was winning comfortably. She goes, "Fine, do you resign?" I say, "Let's just count the score again," and she goes, "That's not how it works. You either quit and I win, or we keep playing." So I resign and she proceeds to tell the people next to us how she won and blah blah. I don't regret what I did next. I told her basically what I wrote in the second paragraph and that she made it, so I didn't even want to say something to her because I was expecting a snarky comment or disagreement. I paid for our drinks, told her I was leaving, and took the metro home. The weird thing is, she looked genuinely surprised and upset when I revealed this to her. Okay, here it goes. First of all, I poo-pooed. Of course he said that about Africa and I live in Germany. Stupid brain does stupid things. We met on a dating site, similar to OkCupid. The date in itself was kind of an experiment because I knew from the start that he was rather conservative while I'm very liberal. But we got on well while messaging, and just because someone doesn't share an opinion or two I have doesn't mean they are terrible people. So we decided to meet up for some coffee. As I mentioned, he was 20 minutes late. But because we both came there right after work and he cited a work emergency, I wasn't angry about it. Now I was prepared for the usual chit chat, but my question about his job made him go into a long speech about why his job was so great, how much money he made, that he was practically receiving a promotion right now which meant even more money. I mostly nodded and made some noises to let him know I was still there. He then mentioned that he was in a fraternity, Bruderschaft. Fraternities in Germany are not what they are in the US. Most are horribly conservative, some are outright racist. So this was a red flag. But there he was, sitting in front of me, on a date with a black girl. So I assumed he probably wasn't. He explained that he was in a fighting frat, and even proudly showed me his scars, miss, from fencing. To change the topic, I asked him about books. His favorite book, Germany is Abolishing Itself, Deutschland schafft sich ab, by Thilo Sarrazin. It is basically a book about why genetics are the reason why Turkish Muslim people are the worst. Who is Turkish Muslim? Pretty much everyone who isn't Caucasian. The guy who wrote it is an economics major, so of course he knows about genetics. I told him that I had read the book and didn't only like it because I disagreed with the topic, but because it was badly written. He smiled at me a bit condescendingly and started to explain why Mr. Sarrazin was indeed right. It was a very lengthy explanation, but boiled down to, due to genetics, white people will always be a bit better than black people. Mostly because black people can never be as smart as white people. Henceforth the economic and living conditions in Africa are bad because of the lack in intelligence in black people. Why wasn't I offended? Because fuck that guy. But I was fascinated enough to stay and listen to more of his BS. He again came to his frat and proudly mentioned that they would allow black people and gays, imagine that, to attend. At that point I decided that I had enough and ended the date. He later messaged me, telling me that I was very beautiful and smart, and that he wanted to see me again, as soon as possible. I actually thought about it. Mostly because my sister offered to pick me up afterwards, dressed in lion skin, and with a bone in her hair. But in the end I did decline his invitation, even though he asked me to imagine the possibilities we would have. I've been wanting to tell this forever. I went to a dinner first date with a nice young lady. She was a little jittery, but I just assumed it was first date jitters. Dinner is going great, but she seems a little distracted most of the time and is fidgety. Again, I'm just thinking she's super nervous. Halfway through the meal she announces that she has to go to the bathroom. I make a stupid joke about hope everything comes out alright, and it doesn't go over too well. Dang, I screwed up. My date is gone for what seems like an eternity. I'm starting to think that I've been ditched on a first date, and my joke earlier definitely sealed the deal. She's still gone, and I've finished my meal. The waiter comes by what must be 5 to 6 times, and asks if everything is okay. I calmly laugh, and thank him for coming by so much. But then she comes back. Ouch. That bathroom trip must have hurt, I'm thinking. It's kind of awkward, but quickly she's back into conversation like nothing happened, scarfing down her meal. Dinner is finished, and we are having a cocktail at the same table, and it's been about 15 minutes since she came back. Then, all of a sudden a police officer comes up to our table and says, "Excuse me, Ms. Jick 00006, is this your purse?" She replies yes. He says, "Come with me." She gets up and walks outside. Everyone in the restaurant is staring at me. I can see outside through the front door restaurant windows, and he's questioning her. Then he puts her in the car. Then they speed away. I'm left there in the restaurant feeling flabbergasted and really confused. Everyone is staring at me. Everyone. I'm sitting there with a shitty cocktail in my hand waiting for the check when the manager comes up to me and says, "Hi, you must be Jick 00006. I'm very sorry about this. The young lady informed the officer this was your first date together. Is that correct?" I replied yes, and trying not to cause a scene I asked what the hell was going on. It appears that when she went to the bathroom, she left her purse behind. When she returned to the table, one of the waitstaff found the purse and opened it to determine its owner. While doing so, he did locate her ID, but next to her wallet was a bag of cocaine. UHH. We normally don't call the police in these types of situations, and I truly apologize, but the waitstaff in question did so without asking first. Met a girl online, Rachel. We messaged a little bit, met up for drinks and hit it off. A week later, time for our first real date. She invited me over, said she was gonna make me dinner, and we'll see what happens from there. What happened from there? Knock on the door. Some slack-jawed kid answers. I see an older woman lying prone on the couch behind him. Right then Rachel calls and tells me she's running late, but make myself at home. She'll be there in half an hour. Turns out Rachel lives with her aunt, two cousins, and some random girl. Sitting in a rocking chair in the corner is a heavily pregnant woman with one hand resting gently on her belly, staring vacantly into space. Rachel shows up and makes me dinner. She heats up plain noodles, then dumps a shitload of parmesan on top. Voila. She pours a glass of flat, warm, root beer and then tops it off with some scotch she had hidden away. Said SHHH. Don't let the others know. I go to the bathroom and text my friend that I'm on a weird date, but that I'm all in, and I'm going to see how this plays out. Spend about 3 hours in the living room with these people. The aunt is flat on the couch the whole time. The pregnant girl never says anything. The cousin is cool. He's a good kid. Probably 13 years old or so. The aunt keeps making vile sex jokes right in front of her son. Talks about putting pop rocks in her underpants so she can achieve orgasm discreetly. Finally the aunt goes to bed. Rachel turns the lights off, and we decide to watch a movie. The volume is so loud it's hurting my ears. It's just fucking blaring. The cousin kid is still there, and the pregnant woman is next to the TV, facing us, staring. Rachel decides now is a good time to make out. Well, fuck it. So we are making out with two people watching us while this movie blares. Cousin kid was trying to make jokes and Rachel was like, mind your own business. Grow up, while we make out on the couch next to him. We finally go to her bedroom, which has a mattress on the floor. Yada yada yada, she tells me I'm probably the one and starts reciting poetry to me. I walk of shame past the cousin kid and the pregnant girl while the movie still blares. I knew a girl who waitressed at a restaurant I frequented every Sunday with my family. We became one of her favorites very quickly, and I started taking a strong liking to her too. We both shamelessly flirted back and forth whenever we saw each other. One day, as we were leaving, she asked what I was doing that weekend, and before I could respond, she got embarrassed and said, "Oop, I can't let my boss see me chatting. Sorry, bye." I left my cell number on a comment card and left it at our table. She texted me that night and we set up a date. I kinda dressed up a bit, nothing fancy, nice jeans and a collared, button-up shirt. She showed up in basketball shorts and a shirt. We talked quite a bit and actually had a pretty good time. The bill came while she was in the bathroom and I paid it in full while she was gone. She came back and so did the receipt about the same time. When she found out I had paid for dinner, she was like, "Oh, okay, thanks." We sat and talked for a little bit more until we started talking about past relationships. She brought it up. I asked her about some stuff and she kept mentioning past girlfriends. Conversation kept going and I eventually broke down and asked if she identified as a lesbian, bi, or straight. I can't remember how I phrased it, but let's just say I did it in the most suave way possible. She just laughed and was like, "I was wondering when you'd ask that. I don't like to put a label on it because I don't like being limited like that." At that point, I wasn't even sure what her intentions were. She kept commenting on how polite I was being, and it became clearer that she was so impressed by my politeness because this wasn't a date. We spent the next 2 hours trying to clarify each other's intentions, but neither one of us had read the situation right at all. I still don't know what she was looking for, and she thought it was weird and kind of offensive that I just assumed that she was interested in me like that. TL. Doctor, lesbian slash bisexual slash pansexual slash not straight girl. Didn't know that at the time. Asks me out on a date, then gets offended when I assume that she liked me like that. Have posted this story elsewhere, but it's too good not to share it again. Apologies for the wall of text, but I promise you it is worth the read. Around a year and a half ago, my girlfriend that I'd been with for around 4 years decided that she'd rather date some army guy she'd known for only a month and dropped me to the curb for him. Whole other story, and needless to say, that sort of experience makes you reconsider your whole outlook on relationships. Because of that, I decided that I was going to take a bit of time off from relationships to just enjoy being myself. I had been dating my girlfriend since about a month after I finished university, so I'd never really known adult life as a single male without any study burdens. Anyway, after some time had passed, I decided I would try to get back out there again and just have some fun. I wasn't averse to anything serious if it came to that, but I wasn't going looking for it specifically. Now, I'm not the most outgoing type of person and would much rather know someone's personality before going out to meet them. This is where I figured online dating would be a good option. I had never given it a thought before, and my friends were the kind of people that made fun about how much of a loser you'd have to be to partake in online dating. But I figured this is 2013, it's not a big deal. For the most part it went alright. A few replies here and there. I had a few conversations with some girls who provided some decent enough conversations, but nothing that really made me want to go and meet them. Enter Bront, let's call her that. Anyway, Bront was really funny, really laid back. We shared interest and some hobbies, and she had a gorgeous smile, as much as I could tell from her profile and Facebook. I was actually really excited to meet her. Usually, I never know when is the right moment to ask girls out. I'm sure it's cost me relationships before, as they might think I drag out the talking phase too long. It wasn't like that with Bront. I was really excited to actually meet her in person, so I just bit the bullet and said we should meet up for a drink. She was completely upfront and told me that she's had some bad experiences meeting guys online before, so would I mind if we met up, but in a group situation? This was honestly my worst nightmare. As someone who is sort of an introvert, meeting her face to face, let alone a whole group of her friends, was daunting enough. But I knew that I really liked what I'd learned about her so far, so I psyched myself into it and went along. We ended up going to a local pub to play trivia. There were 3 or 4 of her friends there, and they were actually pretty fun people. One of them worked in it, as did I, so we got along, and there were 2 other girls there, one of which looked a lot like Mila Kunis, so that was an easy in for a talking point. Anyway, the night went well, and afterwards, she gave me a hug and a kiss on the cheek, telling me she really wants to meet up again, but one-on-one this time. I smile and tell her I'll call her, and we can set it up. We go our separate ways. I call her the following night, and suggest Saturday night for our date. She's a music teacher, and will be out of town this weekend with a music excursion. She apologizes profusely, but says if I don't mind doing the group situation again, all of her friends really enjoyed having me around, and that I should go to trivia again. I didn't really want to let the whole group dynamic thing become too regular, but I really liked her, and she seemed to be genuine, so I went along. So I get to the pub on Tuesday night and they're all sitting at a table, and Brond waves me over. I go over and think, at least I can grab a seat next to her. I arrive at the table and there is a guy there that wasn't there the week before. He extends his hand and introduces himself as, let's call him Kyle. I'm a bit annoyed, but shrug it off. Anyway, about half an hour into the trivia rounds I look over, and Brond has her hand on this guy's leg. I'm completely taken aback by this, but don't jump to any conclusions. Maybe he's a friend she's known for a long time, who knows. The night goes on and it's becoming very obvious that Kyle is her boyfriend. I have no idea when this happened, and while I'm keeping cool on the surface, I'm fuming underneath. I dragged my ass to a pub on a Tuesday night twice to spend time with people I didn't know, and let's be honest, was only spending time with to get to know her better, and then she springs this on me. By this point I have absolutely zero interest in still being there. I don't want to be rude though, so I stay until the end of trivia. I completely stop participating though. I'm not rude, and I'm not really doing it intentionally, but my head is too full of confusion and frustration to actually be of any use. Trivia finishes and we're all hanging around outside, and they talk about going to a bar in the city for a few drinks. I politely say I need to be up early. I lied, and I'd go home. Over the next few days, Brond keeps sending me FB messages, asking if I want to go to trivia again, asking if I want to meet up with her, very obviously in a friend way though. There's no more talk of dating. She eventually realizes that I'm not interested in hanging out anymore, and one afternoon she calls me asking what my deal is. I explain to her that she has a boyfriend. She doesn't understand why this is a problem. I explain to her that when I meet someone on a dating website, ideally it would be for dating purposes. If there is a boyfriend involved, this is more or less a deal breaker. She, somehow, doesn't understand this concept and starts raving at me about how I'm a selfish prick. I try to explain that my actions were the opposite of selfish, but she is having none of it. She tells me that if I were to just put in a bit more effort, she would have slept with me regardless of her boyfriend. A friend of mine basically blurted in my face that he had a massive crush on me, and I decided to give him a chance because, hey, he was weird, but we got along well enough. So, we decide to go see a movie because I was working and didn't have time for much else and everything seems normal. Cool. So, he comes to pick me up, but he's not the one who picked me up. Instead, it's the truck I don't recognize, and driving is his heavily pregnant sister who says that apparently his mother wanted her to chaperone us. It was odd because, fuck's sake, dude is 18 years old, but whatever. Moving on. We get to the theater, and she sits behind us. I can feel her breathing over my back, and she keeps muttering under her breath the whole time. My friend keeps making weird, awkward grabs at me as well, so I have some woman I don't know hovering behind me, and I keep having to smack his hands away every time they start wandering. Dude, stop. Dude, stop. Starts sounding more like arguing kids, me hissing at him to quit, him just laughing it off, his sister wheezing behind us and cursing to herself. I was so happy when the movie ended and thought I'd get a ride home. fingers crossed, while my friend basically piled himself on top of me in the back of the truck and grinned. Then, the sister says she needs to make a pit stop at home, which winds up being her way of saying that that's as far as she's going. So she pulls up in their family's driveway and then disappears inside. Out comes his mom, grinning like a loon, who says she'll give us a ride the rest of the way home. Keep in mind, I'd been friends with this dude since I was 14. I had never met his mom in that time. She's never met me, but she's apparently heard of me because she's just happily talking to me after this incredibly awkward and unsettling date, like the next phase of their plan is for me to get married to her son and start popping out kids. He seemed to like the idea, but me? Oh my god, I just wanted to go home. So, she pulls into the driveway of my house. I scramble out of the truck. I mutter a goodbye and I start inside my house, my mom thankfully waiting inside for me. It's not until I sit down on the couch that I realize that my friend and his mom have fucking followed me inside, and there's my mom with this wide-eyed, confused look on her face while she's silently begging me to tell her what in the holy fuck is going on. 10 minutes later, the dude's mom has launched into a weird fire and brimstone spiel about the glory of God and praise Jesus, and my own mother, a pretty religious person herself, is just glaring daggers at her and trying, as politely as she can, to tell her to get the fuck out of her house. It took a half hour, but the friend deciding randomly that one failed date meant that I was his girlfriend and continually stalking me online and at home when I visit my mom. Oh, that's been going on 10 goddamn years, give or take. Thank you so much for watching the whole video. Please leave a like and subscribe.